Welcome to There's Sometimes a Buggy, Irresponsible Opinions about Classic Film. I'm Elise.
I'm Dave. This week, it's our Valentine's Day 2026 special subject, Adam Sandler Valentine, The Wedding Singer, and Punch Drunk Love. Since both of our movies are too recent to have been included in the Leonard Maltin TV Movies and Video Guide or in any other coffee table book that we have, we're once again going to turn to Letterboxd for introductory material. The Wedding Singer is from 1998. Their little write-up goes like this. Robbie, a local rock star turned wedding singer, is dumped on the day of his wedding. Meanwhile, waitress Julia finally sets a wedding date with her fiancé Glenn. When Julia and Robbie meet and hit it off, they find that things are more complicated than anybody thought. The director is Frank Coraci, and the cast list, Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore, Christine Taylor, Alan Covert, Matthew Glave as Glenn Guglia. Well, let's bring in Ellen Albertini Dow and Angela Featherstone and Alexis Arquette as well, not to mention Billy Idol.
So this was your Valentine's Day episode pick.
Yes.
But as it transpires from our conversation, just before we started the podcast, off mic, you have almost no interest in or curiosity about Adam Sandler, so can you explain?
Well, I really like these two movies, and The Waterboy, and there are a couple of others that I enjoy to a greater or lesser extent. The persona of Adam Sandler in general doesn't seem to have been designed specifically for my enjoyment.
It's obvious why you would watch Punch Drunk Love, but what were you doing watching The Wedding Singer?
The Wedding Singer has a very special place in my heart. It was the winter of 1998, very bleak winter for me. I was coming off the end of my first serious relationship and then the end of my rebound relationship from that relationship. At that time, I was studying at Concordia downtown in Montreal, and you could go see movies in between classes at all kinds of different theaters. I went to see The Wedding Singer just to kill some time. I wound up loving it, and I went 2 more times before it left the cinema. It really made me feel better.
That's insane. Perhaps if you were a more miserable person, you would enjoy Adam Sandler more.
Thankfully, I haven't needed Click or Pixels to cheer me up at later points in my life. For something like this, it's very hard to override the euphoric little nostalgia bombs that go off in your head. I still feel like this is a really good movie. I think Elise is going to disagree with me, so you'll get both sides possibly tonight.
It's an okay movie. I saw it at the time. You know, it was a hit, and sometimes those would somehow float by me on a visit to my family, which were frequent during all those long, useless years at university. I remember when, Drew Barrymore was in movies all the time. Maybe she still is, and I just don't watch movies anymore.
Well, this was her big change of direction, right? Because before that, she had been kind of edgy, and then all of a sudden, she's America's sweetheart. And really, it starts with The Wedding Singer, as far as I know.
So these two movies, because as usual, I did a small amount of research, these two movies have something similar about their stories in that both are considered by critics a couple of the better Adam Sandler movies, but someone in each case approached Adam Sandler to work with them and were apparently very obsessed with this idea. In this case, it was Drew Barrymore who considered him a cinematic soulmate. The question in my mind is, was this something smart she was doing because he was making, big box office hits, and she thought, I want to make big box office hits and become America's sweetheart, and I'm going to somehow do that through Adam Sandler? Or was she just completely following her instincts? Because she did, of course, end up briefly marrying Tom Green, so maybe she just really has a surreal low comedy sensibility.
I think all of those things are probably true. So Adam Sandler had been on Saturday Night Live, a popular cast member there. Unlike many of his contemporaries on that show, he made a very successful transition to the big screen in the mid-1990s. And those movies, Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison, I saw them just because they were part of the ambient culture. I never saw them in the cinema, but those are really not my kind of movies, from what I recall anyway. So this is a serious change of pace for him, because he is the romantic lead in the movie, and he's being asked to emote and have feelings.
The writer of the movie, one of his collaborators, Tim Herlihy, had also worked on Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore. So again, the same question kind of arises. They knew they were doing a change of pace here. The writer attributed the new maturity of the script partly to the fact that he had gotten married, and I guess was thinking about, I don't know, women in a more respectful way or at all. And Drew Barrymore's presence, because apparently she tested so well with audiences that the Sandler fan base no longer objected when he wasn't on the screen for a scene. And again, was the idea of making a romantic comedy and having an adorable leading lady, was this also some attempt to branch out and have a broader appeal?
Most of the movies he made after this incorporate some element of that, from what I remember.
Yeah, and he made at least a couple more with Drew Barrymore.
They have great chemistry, I think. It was a win all around.
But, of course, I've watched something like this. I mean, I would say as a romantic comedy, it's probably better than Flying Down to Rio.
Of course it is.
But if you compare it to my favorite romantic comedies from the studio era,
it does incorporate some elements that are present in even the absolute greatest of screwball comedies, right? Like romantic leads who are, for whatever reason, stuck on someone that is absolutely horrible and makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, romantic comedies have continued to do that since the studio era. It wasn't confined to that period.
I have to assume that that's part of what you're talking about when you say there are holes. Like, why is the Drew Barrymore character with this guy?
Sorry, I didn't mean plot holes.
Okay.
I just meant it's just not as good. It's not as well written. Not as well directed.
No, it's not Cooker.
Not Hawks. It's none of them.
I think it's got a lot going for it. We'll dive into that.
Well, you're going to have to make the case, and then I can tell you whether I agree or not. I will say, I'm not alone in thinking that the rapping granny, Ellen Dow, is the single funniest scene in the whole movie.
Oh yeah, well that was in the trailer.
It's such an obvious joke that it shouldn't work, but it doesn't matter, because she's really funny.
That woman is wonderful in this movie. Right near the beginning, when she pays him in meatballs and then she grabs his hands and crushes the meatballs.
It's such a weird joke.
It's amazing. Almost every scene involving Ellen Dow, I think, is excellent.
Yeah, and the way she delivers that very characteristic late 90s, 2000s comedy sex joke, right?
That would be like 200 now.
It's perfect. It's so great.
She's good.
She's selling these lines.
Another important aspect of this movie is that it declared that nostalgia for the 1980s was fair game.
Oh yeah, I mean, this movie has a smarter soundtrack than you would expect from an Adam Sandler movie, starting with him giving a very good rendition of the great You Spin Me Right Round.
Starts with a real bang. You get to see Adam Sandler's wedding singer ensemble in full effect. He's reached kind of the pinnacle of his profession in that performance. He's maybe got a little extra oomph because he's about to get married himself. The whole soundtrack is very well chosen. I owned the soundtrack. I enjoyed it. Sandler is a good singer.
Yes, I didn't know that, or I had completely forgotten it.
Doing good covers of pop songs.
Yeah, he's doing his Dead or Alive cover, followed by Alexis Arquette's Boy George tribute.
I mean, that's one of the great running gags in this movie, too. There are a lot of good Culture Club songs, but Alexis Arquette only learned one of them.
I will say, I luckily don't dip that much into comedies made after 1960. We did do a little dip with Trading Places.
Oh, that repulsed you.
Yeah, compared to that, this is extraordinarily enlightened in its approach to not only gender, but also sexuality and transgenderism. You know, Alexis Arquette's character never says anything, but she is definitely part of the gang.
Yeah, she's part of the team.
At the bar mitzvah, there's two men dancing together at one point.
There are people at the wedding who are perplexed by the Boy George performance.
Practically everybody, and also that's historically accurate because mainstream people who didn't know anything about queer culture were very perplexed when Boy George came on the scene.
You, as the audience member, you're laughing at them more than laughing at George.
There is the standard trans joke.
Oh, yeah.
About the biggest loser in the room.
Steve Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi not knowing that this is a trans woman. Actually, Steve Buscemi is redeemed by the end of the movie. Like, this is a really good-hearted movie. So many of these dumb contemporary comedies are kind of dark and nasty, but this movie, it's got its huge, broad-stroke, anti-materialist message, and aside from that, it kind of just wants to embrace everybody.
Except for Glenn Guglia, which is...
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, all for the best, because that is a monster.
Well, and also the ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, but she's not treated as scathingly. He doesn't want to be with her anymore.
He calls her a psycho.
She is behaving strangely. But I don't think the movie hates her. It definitely hates Glenn Guglia. With good reason.
A toxic masculine boor.
Obsessed with Miami Vice.
Yeah, and even the male and the female sex addict. So it seems like maybe there's some slut-shaming jokes going on with Christine Taylor's character, but by the end of the movie...
She's a great character.
She and the male slut have found true love together, we are led to believe.
They're both very likable characters. So we're only 8 years out of the 1980s. And I remember there were people like, is it time for this already? Apparently it was.
Oh, and what did you think of the joke about Sandler's Heartbreak song, where he presciently discovers grunge?
Quiet, loud, yeah.
Yeah, and quiet, loud, and psychotic and suicidal.
He says he's been listening to The Cure a lot.
Well, that's not The Cure.
The beginning is. There are all kinds of great cameos in this movie, as you mentioned. Steve Buscemi, you got John Lovitz. People just seem to want to be in this movie.
I had no idea before doing research for this movie how critically despised Sandler is. He really inherited the Jerry Lewis mantle in that respect.
So that's just making you love him.
Well, no.
You want to see Jack and Jill now, don't you?
I don't think he has that much in common with Jerry Lewis, but when I'm looking at the description of some of his movies, I'm like, this is fully insane. What is he doing? I've only read a few sentences of the plot description of You Don't Mess with the Zohan, and I'm like, what in the hell?
Yeah, that one looks radioactive to me. We've got two characters who are desperate to get married. They've been living their whole lives to get married. The Sandler character and the Barrymore character. They are intensely romantic, and everyone talks about that. They're so focused on this that they have made some poor first choices as fiancés. So that's basically where we are at the beginning of this movie. And Sandler is the one that finds it out first because his wedding is coming up. I find that wedding scene incredible. When I went to see the movie, something kind of clicked in my head. I was like, oh, this is actually going to be really good. His sister shows up. There was a note. That moment where she says there was a note and he's like, a note? And he's like trying to stop from crying already. It's really good. Just the way the camera goes back to her and focuses on her face as she watches her brother fall apart.
But he does go off and go into a crazy rage briefly, doesn't he?
Definitely a rage right out of what he will be doing in Punch Drunk Love.
I mean, we might as well already say at this point, Paul Anderson chose him for Punch Drunk Love because he was obsessed with Adam Sandler movies at the time. Specifically obsessed with, not surprising, from Punch Drunk Love, Sandler's ability, I'm assuming, you know, within the persona of a nice, really likable guy, his ability to tap into crazy, white-hot rage that seemed very authentic.
He slinks off and goes into this little cabana, and he's looking at himself in the mirror, trying to recite his mantra or something to calm down. He just smashes up the whole place. And all the wedding guests just feel this because they know how much this was meaning to him. And then you've got Alexis Arquette in tears, which is really funny because all the mascara is running, but it's also another emotional gut punch. It actually works in both senses, I think.
You think she's feeling the empathy on his behalf, like Mary in the drugstore scene when George is getting his ear smacked?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is a movie where people deeply care about each other, and it really comes across.
Should be noted before we move on, because there aren't many other rage outs in this movie. It's never directed at women, although Paul Anderson does go there.
He never blames Linda. He blames her when she comes back inexplicably.
Well, she does get called a bitch by a little kid.
And he tells his friends, don't talk about her that way.
Okay, fair enough, but the movie does go for the joke.
Of course the movie goes for the joke, and people would go for that joke in real life too. But he's saying, no, I'm depressed, I'm devastated, but we're not gonna take it out on her. He's moping around the house. He lives in his sister's basement, which is a source of shame to him.
Well, I don't know if it was before this incident.
No, he had been blissfully following his inclinations to be a minor musician. music figure in the town that he grew up in and loves.
Presumably, at one point, the point at which he and Linda fell in love, he did have rock star aspirations, but he doesn't seem to have become bitterly obsessed with his failure.
No, because he says, really what I wanted to do was write songs.
Yeah, and also, perhaps, Dave, this is part of your affection for or identification with this movie, because you've often told me that despite having academic and writing talents and aspirations in those areas, that you have always been more relationship focused, and that's why you never became bitter about the fact that you and I haven't really fulfilled any ambitions.
Yeah, sure.
Other than, of course, this wonderful podcast.
He's not sure what to do with himself anymore. As you say, people are commenting around the house. They are starting to worry that he's going to spiral even further.
Yeah, there are a lot of very unenlightened jokes. The little kids running around saying, "You're going in a mental institution."
Nervous breakdown, nervous breakdown. And his best friend comes over, tells him, you gotta go back to work. That's the thing that's gonna end this funk for you.
Yeah, but of course he can't sing at weddings anymore because now he hates weddings.
Well, no, he agrees to sing at a wedding, right? He gets talked into it, miraculously.
Well, yeah, for this one wedding.
This is where he does rage out once again. Does a pretty amazing version of the Jay Giles Band song, Love Stinks.
And then he starts,
well, I have a microphone and you don't, so you will listen to every damn word I have to say.
So he also starts punching down, or at least punching laterally, which is how he's feeling at the moment.
Well, exactly. And I think it's really important that there is mean humor in that scene. And it's clear that this is not who he is. This is the product of a diseased mind behaving this way, and he deeply regrets it, and it's coming out of self-hatred. Some of that stuff is funny, but regrettable as well, and the movie makes it clear that he regrets it, treading a very difficult line there. The wedding itself turns into a riot caused by his behavior. I mean, he sabotages the entire event with his dismal melancholy, and at that point, yes, he vows, okay, I can never perform at weddings again. Of course, meanwhile, he's been getting to know Drew Barrymore a little bit, because she's a waitress at the reception hall.
Does the movie ever explain, and I missed it because you've seen this much more often than I have, but does it ever explain how Drew Barrymore and her cousin are living at a house, although they are occasional waitresses?
It doesn't explain that.
Living in a big, very colorful house.
I guess there must be some family money involved.
The mother seems rich.
Yeah, but Drew Barrymore is from out of town, and she's recently relocated there and is living with her cousin. I mean, Glenn lives in the town, and she moved there to be near Glenn. That's all we're told. Glenn has a mansion, but she doesn't live with him yet.
It's like the whole female side of things here is just a fairy tale. Women just live together in houses.
There's a connection formed with Drew Barrymore right away. He meets her during the first scene, during the happy times before he gets married, and she tells him that she's a little worried that she may never actually find her heart's desire and enter the charmed circle of married people. She may be doomed to walk the earth alone. He compares her to the Incredible Hulk, and she finds that charming. He's also helping a kid who's been throwing up because some other less responsible partygoers have plied him with alcohol. You get this nice friendship developing between them.
Ultimately, it leads her to decide to plan her wedding with him. Her fiancé isn't interested.
He's unbelievably boorish about it. His idea is, if we have to get married, let's at least get married in Vegas. And in perhaps the only moment of perceptiveness that he displays in the entire film, he actually notices that she doesn't like this idea.
He's fine with humoring her. His theory of relationships seems to be that you'll marry a nice girl who's not after your money if she really wants it.
He says, I met her before I made my money, so I know I can trust her.
And he genuinely likes her, but obviously he doesn't think this is going to stop him from sleeping with whoever he wants to. And he says, I have a job in the city.
There's a lot of things that kind of conspire to bring them together. She wants to cheer him up, and she's trying in any way she can. She witnesses the massacre at the wedding and tells him that the police are still taking statements. They stay in touch because he is still doing the occasional bar mitzvah at the reception hall. And meanwhile, she's encountered this issue where she doesn't know anyone in town. She doesn't know how to coordinate a wedding by herself. Her husband's not going to be any help, and her cousin doesn't care about stuff like that either. She doesn't really know anyone else.
There's a really weird scene in the bar mitzvah sequence.
It wouldn't really fly today, no.
Well, no, because Adam Sandler is encouraging the little boys to grasp the buttocks of their partners, including Drew Barrymore. But then he dances with a little girl and takes her hands and puts them on his butt. Only a comedian of the greatest innocence could ever put that gag in a movie scene, I would say.
It kind of miraculously doesn't come off as that creepy, but still...
No, it really doesn't, but yeah, it would...
There's no need for it.
Well, it would just be so canceled now.
The beginning of that scene is really important because, again, these are do-gooders, these are loving people, and he's conspiring with Drew Barrymore to cheer up this little loser who thinks that no one will ever want to dance with him. Miraculously, Drew Barrymore appears, and she chooses him out of all of the
young suitors.
Then the ass-grabbing starts.
Yeah, and then the subject of puberty is perhaps tackled too straightforwardly.
You could see why the writers put something like that in there, because again, the movie is always in danger of becoming too sweet and too wonderful, and they have to do something that's a little crass to take the sweetness off. I think they thought their audience needed that.
But that's post-60s comedy in general.
Yeah, probably.
That's a problem. You can almost never escape it. It doesn't matter who the comedy auteur is. Doesn't matter if it's Adam Sandler or Judd Apatow or where can you go to escape this? There's one Bill Murray movie, Groundhog Day, that doesn't do that. And there's Whit Stillman, I guess Noah Baumbach, Wes Anderson, and other people whose movies I don't actually enjoy.
The sweetness in this movie is absolutely the dominant strain. They start planning the wedding together, and we've got some great montages of all the different activities you have to engage in order to get things ready. They pose as brother and sister at one point.
Why don't you tell me some more, though, about the key elements that make this movie live on for you?
A lot of it revolves around the sweetness of the characters. It almost makes sense, even though I actually never saw it, that Sandler did do a Capra adaptation, Mr. Deeds. I have no idea how that turned out. We probably should see it at some point just to possibly marvel at the disaster.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is interesting.
In this movie, he is a Frank Capra character. Small town guy who cares about everyone and everyone loves him.
He's the opposite, though, of George Bailey. He wants to stay in the small town. He doesn't have that many ambitions.
More like Mr. Deeds, right? I mean, he's happy there and
Except
everybody loves him.
He doesn't go to town.
No, he doesn't want to go to town. Well, he does go to town, actually, right? He goes briefly to that bank in New York City,
right,
when he thinks he has to get a job there to impress Drew Barrymore.
Well, that is a good point, actually, because the first reference point I would have for a comedian who tends to play dim-witted characters and is critically despised would be Jerry Lewis. I mean, Jerry Lewis in the movies that he directed himself in definitely does have a certain kind of sweetness.
But not like this.
But no, not like a Capra character. So it's important, I think, to bring that reference point in here. So despite the low vulgar post-1950s comedy stylings of Adam Sandler, there is that connection.
He's deeply empathetic to people around him.
If there has to be a Capra character analog, I'd rather it be Adam Sandler than Forrest Gump.
Yeah, well, exactly. He's a smart guy. He's just very sweet, to the point of seeming like a fool at times, right? To people that don't understand, like Glenn Guglia. This is something that you see in some of the very greatest romantic comedies, right? Like Holiday. That whole movie is just hitting you over the head over and over again with the fact that Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn are having so much more fun together than Grant could possibly have with the person that he says he's in love with.
True.
And this movie really takes its time to establish that. You know, neither of them is acknowledging that there is romantic love growing between them. But of course, we know as viewers that that's what's happening. And then little by little, the other characters start remarking upon it.
But here's something that's interesting, that all of those classic screwball comedies of the 1930s and 1940s, including most of the Capras, or perhaps all of the Capras, are not sweet. Sweetness is absolutely not how you would characterize the characters or their relationship.
No, I agree.
So this is doing something different. And Drew Barrymore, it's funny because I just went and visited my family around Christmas time, which I never do. I visit my family, but not around Christmas time because it's in the prairies and it's usually colder than Toronto, though not this year. My sister was going, "Oh, I remember when you liked Drew Barrymore. Remember when you liked Drew Barrymore? I hated Drew Barrymore. You were really into Drew Barrymore." And I kind of tried to defend myself. The fact is that Drew Barrymore is just hopelessly adorable during this period. I don't know how anyone could not, sorry, Aaron, I don't know how anyone could not like Drew Barrymore.
No, she's delightful.
And she's not, I don't feel like she's laying it on too thick. I feel that she's just got this perfect test audience ready persona and face. It never grates me. It just seems so natural to her. And yeah, she was doing the trashy, edgy child actor turning into an adult thing before this, before she settled into just kind of just using her face and her glow.
And she let her eyebrows grow back. That's the big turning point.
When she became good instead of evil?
That's right. Didn't she play Amy Fisher in one of those movies?
Yeah, I loved that. I loved her. Actually, Aaron's probably remembering that too. I loved her trashy teen period too.
Yeah, there were some interesting things there, no doubt. Poison Ivy. This is the imperial phase for Drew Barrymore.
And it is crazy how much her face does look like Lionel Barrymore's, but why is it pretty? I don't know. It's just the lip gloss? I don't know.
The rest of the movie is just waiting for the inevitable to happen. They come up with some interesting wrinkles. The characters that you think are just going to be butts of jokes, as you were saying, like the cousin who slept with everybody. She's the one that starts to put things together in her own way about what's actually going on.
She's trying to hook up with Robbie.
In her quest to do that, she goes about it in a very roundabout way because she convinces Drew Barrymore to kiss him just so they can demo what an appropriate church wedding kiss would be like.
Church tongue.
Isn't that really funny?
Their scene where she discovers the crush is interesting because it feels like it's going to go to a very bad place. And this is kind of a segue between this character and the Punch Drunk Love character, where her aggressive sexuality is going to prove to be way, way too much for him. Like, the whole scene is seen from his perspective of this woman who's like, oh, look, I'm going to be just like all men want women to be, and I'm just going to be completely sexually aggressive and available and frank, right? And he's experiencing this as a complete emotional assault. And it feels like it's going to go to some terrible place where he's going to lash out at her, or she's going to end up being hurt or angry, or it feels like it's going to go to an ugly place. But then, when the penny drops and she realizes why he's not interested, or in her opinion, why he's not interested.
And she's right, because people are deeply empathetic in this movie. They really are paying attention to each other, and they're trying to understand where the other person is coming from.
Yeah, and then all of this tension, thank God, that's been building in this scene drops away.
You know why she's marrying him, don't you? And he's like, what? Security? Money? I guess that's important to some people, he says. And she's like, no, Robbie, that's important to all people. She's been having trouble for quite a while, presumably, trying to figure out herself why her cousin is marrying this idiot. And of course, that all comes out the next day when they are discussing it over breakfast. I think Christine Taylor is really good in this movie, too. She's essential to the success of the film. Drew Barrymore is hungover. She gets blitzed during the double date because she can't stand watching Robbie with her cousin and just thinking about how things are going off the rails.
And then there's also that great scene at the bar between Robbie and Sammy.
These things are kind of happening in parallel, almost. Sammy explains that he is not happy. Alan Covert. He's in a lot of Sandler movies.
Yeah, so Sandler's just like, well, from now on, I'm not going to get emotionally involved. I'm going to just be like you. I'm just going to have a good time.
And he's like, I'm not having a good time. What gave you that idea? Just because I said it? No, I'm miserable.
Well, he said, and it's funny because this is something usually attributed to women in movies, this kind of speech, where he says, it was fun when I was 20, but I'm starting to get gross now.
Nobody wants to see a 50-year-old guy hitting on chicks. Nobody is making fun of Robbie for having authentic feelings. The only thing that's been troubling other people at the sides of the narrative is that maybe they just haven't been able to muster up those feelings yet. It's not that they think those are invalid, it's that they're waiting for it to happen. And they meet an old man at the bar who's got his own ideas. That scene at the breakfast table with the two cousins, she's like, well, I told him why you were marrying Glenn, because he's got that mansion and money. And she's like, but I'm not marrying him for that. And her line reading is perfect. She's like, well, then why are you marrying him? And Drew Barrymore just, her face crashes to the table as she realizes, why am I marrying him? What is this? It's great. I mean, the movie needs conflict and drama, but again, I think they've found great ways to do it. It's a believable series of unfortunate miscommunications that leads Adam Sandler to think that, okay, I've had everything all wrong. Even someone as amazing as Drew Barrymore is never going to take me seriously if I just live in my sister's basement, so I've got to go try to become a banker. And he's just feeling completely demoralized. He comes home. He's also stopped giving lessons for meatballs. He can't do that anymore. He's got to think about himself. He has this confrontation with Drew Barrymore where he doesn't freak out on her, but he's very, very deeply angry and hurt, and that's radiating off him. And he accuses her of being materialistic, and she had made a present for him. They were about to just put all their problems behind them, but he's just opened the gulf again.
Yeah, there are many misunderstandings to go.
The misunderstandings in this movie, they just feel, obviously they're not exactly realistic, but they have the feel of realism. Like, just one wrong word can derail a relationship or potential relationship that might get back on track, but you've got to do all kinds of other work. It's a different realm of misunderstanding than you get in things like the Fred and Ginger movies, although I love those, but those are like truly ridiculous misunderstandings that are keeping them apart. In this movie, it's like, yeah, there's always a danger that someone is going to have a bad moment, say something really stupid, and then you may never recapture that momentum again towards a relationship. And she made all these calligraphy music sheets for him so that he could get back to his songwriting. And he's like, is gathering up these music sheets, and he's like, I am an asshole. And his nephew is there to observe. And then we get some more misunderstandings, but we don't have to go into them in too much depth. The original fiance of Adam Sandler comes back to the tune of the Smiths, How Soon Is Now. He says, no, I don't want this anymore.
No, he accepts her. Well, initially, because he's drunk.
No, he doesn't accept her.
Yes, he does. He says, I don't want to be alone anymore, and then he passes out.
Then he passes out. He's not thinking clearly, and he doesn't even remember it when he wakes up the next morning. He's like, what are you doing here?
Yes, he has to set some boundaries.
He's not going to change. He's not going to go get a job at the bank. And then you got the amazing finale where, due to the misunderstandings we've been talking about, Drew Barrymore just says, even though I hate the idea of becoming Julia Gulia, we're just going to go to Las Vegas. I'm just going to immolate myself on this pyre of misunderstanding. And it's up to Adam Sandler to find some way to prevent that.
Well, no, it's actually just up to the coincidence of them being on the same airplane.
It winds up being easier than he thought it would be because he thinks he's going to have to go to every cheapo chapel in Las Vegas to try to interrupt their stupid wedding.
Well, luckily the screenplay has a shortcut.
And Billy Idol gets involved, and everyone lives happily ever after, and he sings a love song to her.
And we also get the briefest of indications. Obviously the movie understands that the audience knows its comedy tropes, its romantic comedy tropes, so it doesn't have to lean too hard into anything. We know as soon as the best friends get
Sammy
together.
and Holly.
Yeah, they just have to, say, look at each other once and say one word, and, they don't have to do anything more with that plot. And similarly, there's one mention of Billy Idol, a meta reference here, a lampshade, where Billy Idol is saying, hey, that's a good song, I'm going to tell the record company about you, and Adam Sandler's like, great, but we have to finish the movie, so butt out for a minute so we can kiss. But yeah, the ending is kind of Scorsese-ish almost, in that as part of the abundance at the end of the movie, he's also going to find a way to make money, to be a success, but
that's not soul destroying.
Exactly. By doing the thing that he loves.
It happens occasionally. They've even rescued Steve Buscemi from the horrible pit of despair he was in at the beginning of the movie. He has transformed his whole life, and he's become a wedding singer.
Well, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Even the Steve Buscemi character, the greatest loser of them all from the beginning of the movie, is redeemed.
And his comedy best man speech at the beginning of this movie is incredible. Harold would never beat up his landlord.
This is how you have to pull yourself together in life, by believing in the power of long-term monogamous relationships.
It can work wonders.
So, I guess I would probably get farther with this movie if I was not trying to think of it as an analog to the studio era romantic comedies that I enjoy, because it's really trying to do something very, very different, even if it's using some of the same beats.
It's weaving some of those strands into something quite new.
Well, like a lot of these 90s and 2000s comedian comedies, starring a male comedian. And after that, I think I just stopped watching almost all new movies, so I don't know where things progress from there. But it's a movie that is trying to find its way toward sincerity.
I think it gets there.
But it's trying to find its way towards sincerity through this vulgar cynicism and through this kind of meta-awareness of the storytelling tropes.
Yeah, and all couched in a quasi-satire of a very recently past decade.
But Drew Barrymore is much more of a substantial character than, say, Andie MacDowell in Groundhog Day. She gets a little bit of her own perspective and some of her own scenes in this movie, as opposed to so many of these comedian comedies that were just focused on the woman as a love interest.
Right, well, it makes sense that she actually initiated the whole project.
True.
All right, let's turn our attention now to Punch Drunk Love. I'll go to Letterboxd. A socially awkward and volatile small business owner meets the love of his life after being threatened by a gang of scammers. Director is Paul Thomas Anderson, and our cast list: Adam Sandler, Emily Watson, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Luis Guzman, Mary Lynn Rauskub.
So this came out 3 years later, and I know that this is a movie that you also strongly identify your own romantic feelings with.
Possibly my favorite movie of the millennium, maybe after Mulholland Drive.
Okay. Were you, at this point, falling in love, or were you just enough again, or were you just enough over the last relationship that you were nostalgically thinking back to the beginning of it?
No, I was in a good relationship at that point, again, in 2002.
So if The Wedding Singer was your breakup movie, then this was...
I was back on track by 2002.
Your new romance movie.
Sure. Didn't need this movie to cheer me up at the time, but I couldn't believe how much I loved it.
There are two movies released in our adult lives, or at least my adult life as a moviegoer, where I felt like I had some taste and maturity, that you've completely changed my opinion of. Many that you haven't, or have only partially changed my opinion of, but the two that I've done a really complete flip on. Well, I did a complete flip on Fire Walk with Me, from despising it because I just didn't know how to handle my emotions about it, and it is a very visceral movie, to thinking it's great. I don't think I love it as much as you do, but I do think it's one of the great Lynch films. And this one, where I went from pretty much just indifference to really, really appreciating it. So
we'll see if I can work any kind of similar magic with the Jennifer Jason Leigh movies coming up later this year.
I thought you were going to say The Waterboy, but you'd be more likely to work it with The Waterboy.
And so Paul Thomas Anderson, obviously, nobody has to defend their love. Nearly universally acclaimed as our greatest living director, now that Lynch is dead.
Yeah, that said, I personally... I find all of his movies interesting, but I don't think I respond very strongly to any of them other than his two romance movies, this one and Phantom Thread.
Those are two of the best, for sure. Anderson conceived this film with Sandler in mind, right?
Yeah, much like Sofia Coppola and Bill Murray for Lost in Translation, although two very different effects. For Murray, that's a straight performance, right? A straight dramatic performance, which isn't exactly what Adam Sandler's doing here. That said, even seeing him in The Wedding Singer and then seeing him right away after in Punch Drunk Love, if you weren't doing that, if you weren't watching two Adam Sandlers, only one of which is Punch Drunk Love, back to back, you might say, well, he's pretty much still just being the Adam Sandler character in Punch Drunk Love. But no, there's like a lot of difference.
Yes.
Like, Sandler studied acting at the same time that he was starting out as a stand-up comedian. He had aspirations to be a serious actor, and he clearly has the ability.
Well, he's a tremendous actor. I have never doubted that. I have doubted some of the choices he seems to have made. Now, a lot of them I haven't even seen the movies, right? Like Jack and Jill, everyone talks about that like it could be the worst movie ever made.
Well, they've said that about several of his movies.
I don't think any of the movies are bad, if they are bad, because of Sandler as a performer.
I doubt that they're bad in the sense that this is just a poor piece of writing. The guy is way too smart for that. They are upsetting. They are upsetting people. The kind of comedy that they're doing is upsetting people. The way comedy, often American comedy, really upsets people, and particularly critics. And again, I'm looking at Jerry Lewis's career. Upsetting people in a way that doesn't even make sense. Like, you can just not like it, right? But no, it really upsets and disturbs people.
And yet, things that might upset people if they were the whole movie can wind up working brilliantly and be praised as incredible in a movie like The Wolf of Wall Street, where you've got 25 minutes of Leo DiCaprio crawling around on the ground and across the street, drooling because he's done too many drugs. That seems like some kind of neo Jerry Lewis shit, too.
Sure. No, That's a great scene. But yes, okay, so Anderson got really obsessed with Adam Sandler movies. He said, okay, what was he saying? He said it was because he had just made Magnolia and it had put him in a real funk. And so he, like cancer and child abuse and suicide and death and, all that stuff. And he was in a real bad funk and he started watching Adam Sandler movies and they cheered him up. He said he hit the obsession point with Big Daddy. He was absolutely obsessed and determined to make a movie with Adam Sandler at that point. Yeah, and then, he already had somewhat ideas in his notebook that he could use for that. And then he met Sandler because he watched these movies and he became convinced that Adam Sandler must be a great guy. So he met Sandler. He introduced himself to Sandler, and they hung out a little bit, and they immediately loved each other, and decided that, yes, they must do something together. And Sandler went and watched Magnolia to get familiar with Paul Thomas Anderson, and after that experience, he called up his new friend and said, "We're not going to do anything like that, are we?" He was very intimidated. But anyway, yep, at the time that they were touring around, showing Punch Drunk Love and giving interviews, it was a great love story. I don't know what's happened since, but they really adored each other as people and artists.
And it's not like Paul Thomas Anderson hadn't been using comedic actors before, right? John C. Reilly figures so prominently in several of his 1990s movies, including Magnolia.
And then later he works with the great comedic actor Daniel Day-Lewis.
That's right.
What do I want to say about Punch Drunk Love? For me, it is, I really think of it, and I think I mentioned this, and this must have been our last Valentine's episode, when we did Her.
Mm-hmm.
I really think of them together as, what year is Her? It's quite a bit later.
Yeah, 2013,
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
quite a bit later. But I think of them together as movies about romance, love, sex, from a male perspective that is totally emotionally and sensorially overwhelmed, which is not, a perspective, not the classical male protagonist perspective.
You got Adam Sandler's character, Barry, who is deeply closed off from the world, I think it's fair to say.
He's got 7 sisters like 7 dwarves.
When I watch this movie, and every time I watch it, I feel it more. I don't know what Paul Thomas Anderson's relationship to Peanuts is, but I feel like this is imagining a guy that grew up with 7 Lucys for sisters, with all of the connotations that implies, right? Lucy is one of the meanest characters in the history of literature, but she also has very deep feelings of love for her brother, and you see that in this movie too. These sisters, despite what they're doing to him, they love him. Especially the sister that we get to see the most, Marilyn Ryskub. I mean, she's constantly putting him down, but she also really loves him, and you can see that. Her performance is amazing.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think Emily Watson as her friend, her implausible friend,
well, yeah,
is kind of a double for her, probably.
I guess you could call her a double if what you're saying is that it's like that Star Trek episode where Kirk gets split in 2. This is only the loving side that comes out and is embodied.
You have doubles as in the same person who is nevertheless opposite.
Right.
The way you might get a double in a dream or sometimes in literature.
Or in Star Trek.
You think this is what would have happened to Linus? If
he had 7 sisters like that.
And he grew up, yeah.
Yeah.
And then over in Utah or whatever.
Yeah, Provo, Utah.
There are 4 brothers and a sister.
Working for a mattress man, played by the great Philip Seymour Hoffman. And their paths will converge because Barry has just reached a limit point of sorts where he just has to connect with someone somehow. The only way he can think of to do it is call a phone sex line.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I guess that's where I made the point of connection with her.
Yeah, sure.
Very unfortunate phone sex. This is even more unfortunate. So when I'm driving out with all these brothers and all these sisters, parallel universes of Utah and Los Angeles that are going to converge at one point, is the movie's very simple but enigmatic fairy tale structure and whatever kind of deep psychological structure is underlying that, where these elements of grace come into Barry's life, which is all at the same time the harmonium, Lena, and the pudding. The pudding that's going to buy him endless travel points, even though he doesn't travel. And this debt that he incurs, this terrible debt that threatens to destroy it all because of one moment of being a pervert. And these two things create the tension in the movie. And then there's the parallel of Mattress Man trying to cheat the system, right, by unfairly extorting money from perverts, and Sandler's attempt to cheat the system with the pudding. I mean, these are just, I don't know, I don't have any fully formulated thoughts about this structure. It's just something that I noticed this time.
Sure, it's definitely a miraculous world. And some of the miracles are terrifying and some of them are gratifying. All of that definitely crystallizes right away for the viewer in the cold open, where you've got Sandler sitting in his weird showroom/garage.
Yeah, who actually has a showroom that's the same as their warehouse?
I've worked at places like this in the Montreal area when I was a temp. I just had to go out to these hellscapes, taking 3 or 4 buses to get there. It's dismal. But anyway, this insane car crash occurs that seems like it's coming out of Mulholland Drive or something.
Yeah, sure, and we get all of this
Except there's no blood. Nobody's in the car, it seems.
We get all of this from his already terrified and anxious perspective.
Light is hitting the viewer and him in a weird way, so everything looks kind of off-kilter. And then off-kilter things are happening. Someone leaves that harmonium in the street, and he makes this decision. I'm going to go grab that and bring it back to my office. We'll see what that does. And most importantly, the arrival of Lena.
But he's a little worried about the harmonium too, because this seems like something furtive that he's getting away with as well.
Sure, well, he stole it.
Yeah, I've talked about grace, but it's not clear whether this was given to him or whether he's stolen it.
It's both. And Lena is the authoritative voice on that. She says, "Did you steal that harmonium from the street?" And finally he says yes. And he's like, why? Is it yours? And she's like, no, it's yours. So she ratifies his decision.
And then I was thinking about the concept of grace in relation to the pudding, and how is grace always, or at least grace as it manifests in this flawed world of ours, is grace always
a clerical error?
Exactly. That seems Kafkaesque, doesn't it?
It's a marketing mistake, but I'm taking advantage of it.
That's the only way you can access grace. But getting involved in hell, as he does with Philip Seymour Hoffman and the brothers, right? That's just a momentary error of judgment that you have to pay for forever. So it's very hard to access grace, but it's very easy to plummet into hell.
And that scene where he makes the fateful decision to call the phone sex line, it's pretty amazing. I mean, it just sort of builds up and he seems like he's playing it cool and he's not being impacted by the stupid rote dialogue he's getting from the other end of the line.
Even though he does tell her over and over, I'm not stroking it.
Yeah, I mean, eventually he does, clearly. So her tricks...
Well, he's giving in. She's just going to keep asking.
He thinks, and of course, why wouldn't you think, that it's over? I mean, he paid for it. He hasn't hurt anybody. And he's back where he started the next morning, a loser that can't connect with anyone. No, it's much worse than that, because Georgia calls back and she has a little request for him.
It's almost like after hours. It's like,
exactly.
I just wanted a momentary little tiny relief of tension. That's all I wanted. And now I have to pay for it with my life.
Exactly. Got to have been partially calling back to that.
Or it's just, the same sort of terrible, unconscious male thought process. These elements of gravity and grace, the way they dovetail is in the fact that the bad Barry, the one who is the pervert, whose double is Philip Seymour Hoffman, that is going to threaten to destroy his relationship with Lena. That's not vulnerable to the things that you would think would obviously destroy it, like his tendency to go into insane rages.
I think it's really important that, to me anyway, it seems pretty clear that he calls the phone sex line as a consequence of having met Lena briefly.
Oh, so you think, that's why he has to pay.
I mean, he makes the wrong choice, right? She shows up because she's there in the cold open around the time of the harmonium's arrival, right?
So you think he could have just, called her up instead?
That's pretty clear. That's what she wants, right? She is this incredible deus ex machina that's there from the very opening moments of the film, and everyone can see it. She is somehow radiating this unconquerable love for Adam Sandler.
Her name means light, and as Emily Watson said, I wasn't really playing a character.
No, but she's amazing in this movie.
I'm an abstract idea. Yeah. Paul Thomas Anderson, his direction for me was he kept just saying, do nothing. So she said, I had to act in a completely different way. It wasn't like I was trying to psychologically get into my character like I normally do. I had to just be present in the moment.
Right. Well, that's not easy.
Yeah.
And she is incredible in that role. Because, it could have been very trite and stupid, but the way she plays it, she's a very weird person. She's got a lot of quirks for someone who is not an actual character.
Yeah, I think she's got a point, but also that's not quite all there is to this character, yeah.
But there is this overriding passion for Adam Sandler that is ignited when she sees a picture of him.
Well, something weird. In so many ways it does fit the trope, and I've certainly seen complaints about this online and people discussing the movie. This completely implausible female character who is out of the league of the male protagonist and would obviously never fall in love with a guy like this and would never put up with all of these things. This is all true. And she is supposed to be there just representing this almost unconditional. She does make one condition.
You can't leave.
You can't leave me when I need you. Yep. Almost unconditional love and acceptance for this poor guy so he can heal. But there are weird things in the movie that don't fit that. Very odd things, like the He Needs Me song, which is played over a whole long montage of Barry running around trying to find her. Because the song seems to represent Emily Watson's, Lena's perspective. So what's it doing there? This isn't his thought process. He's not thinking she thinks that I need her. This is her thought process being represented in this strange way that's in the soundtrack. It's like part of the fabric of the movie.
Part of the reason that she is so in love with him right off the bat is because she knows that this is going to be an intense connection if it does solidify somehow, because he is going to depend on her for everything.
And of course you can see the connection there and how she develops into a completely fleshed out character in Phantom Thread.
Yeah, I was an intensely socially awkward teenager. I had no idea how I was ever going to start any kind of relationship with any woman. Thought about it pretty much to the exclusion of all else throughout my high school days.
Did you call a phone sex line?
No, but I did call a telephone dating service because I thought somehow that would be easier.
Was it?
In a roundabout way, it did wind up being easier because I did meet people that just for whatever reason miraculously fell in love with me. And that's what I needed. I needed it to be really somehow simple. I can definitely empathize with this guy. It's not entirely from this male character's perspective, as you say, because there are countervailing elements like that song. But to a guy like this, and I think I can say this authoritatively because I feel like I was not exactly like this guy. I never had rage issues.
So many men do, though.
To someone like Glenn Guglia, obviously this would be complete gibberish. He wouldn't understand it. But to an opposite kind of guy, it does feel like a miraculous godsend that any woman looks at you and says, oh, I want to be with that guy. And that's the feeling that this movie captures so incredibly. And it may not mean as much to someone that hasn't been in that situation. You might not feel like it represents your life experience, although maybe it can represent almost anyone's experience. I would think that falling in love in a very deep way should feel like this person came out of nowhere and is exactly what I needed at this time.
Yeah, well, when people come out of nowhere for me, I would just say that I can relate to a lot of what you were saying.
Exactly.
I was an awkward person who had trouble finding simultaneously someone I wanted to date who wanted to date me. I just don't usually think of them as radiant light beings.
Yeah, that might be something that's coming more out of a traditionally male-gendered perspective.
Yeah, there's some kind of hovering maternal presence here, for sure. Let it also be said that when asked why he wanted to pair Adam Sandler and Emily Watson, Anderson said, well, I thought, these would be two very different, interesting energies together. But I also knew I was making a romantic comedy, and I also just wanted to make a handsome couple, and I think they make a handsome couple. And this is something I was thinking about watching the movie. Sandler has a weird kind of handsomeness.
Sure.
He's that type of actor, comedian, or character actor who looks maybe funny looking for a movie star or for a romantic lead, but he doesn't look like he's handsomer than a regular person.
Yeah, no doubt.
And adult Jerry Lewis has the same thing going on, that watching his movies, and he even plays on this in his movies, because he sometimes splits himself into...
buddy love.
Yeah, at least two characters. You're watching the weird looking comedian who's pulling faces, and then you're also seeing the handsome guy who's a plausible romantic lead, and your mind is, being pulled in all sorts of directions, contradictory directions. I mean, another way in which, sorry, I'm just doing a lot of riffing off of what you were saying, but another way in which this movie connects to Phantom Thread is the idea of a man who is completely engulfed by femininity and reacting to it with dangerous energy, let's say.
That's an interesting aspect of this film that certainly insists upon itself, but has no parallel in my experience. It's not like I related to that in any way. I've never felt feminine energy was threatening, but this movie convinces you that someone might feel that way. Someone like Barry Egan with those sisters.
Yeah, they love him, but they don't regard him as a human being.
No, he's like the mascot.
Or like a separate subjectivity, right? He is having a hard time with this because of the way that men, traditionally at least, have to form their own male identities. And he's having a really hard time doing that. And I've met women with rage issues. Oh, yes. Oh my God, yes. And dish throwers and everything else. But there's this particular kind of male rage issue. I've only encountered it with men. Sandler did admit to taking phones apart, having those kinds of rage issues when he was younger. And this is the sort of thing I've encountered. The taking of the phone apart when, you're talking to someone you love who's being very frustrating. Punching the hole in the wall. You hear those stories over and over again. And there's also a masochistic element to it. It's so turned in on yourself. But the problem with, or the dangerous edge of Barry's rage in this movie is that it is threatening to maybe spill outward.
Yeah, there's always a danger of that. And of course it does when he gets a chance to take it out on the brothers.
Yeah, no, but I'm talking about, of course, one of the big set pieces of the movie when he threatens to kill his sister over the phone and tells him, what are you doing? You're killing me. You're killing me. Do you want me to come and kill you? Would you like that?
Give me that fucking number.
This area of intensity is so terrifying and hilarious at the same time.
It really is.
I don't know, it's like a Joan Crawford moment. When Joan goes crazy and violent in one of her movies, it just reaches this pitch of intensity that ends with, do you want me to kill you? Would you like that? Is that what you would like? You like that? I can't remember exactly what he says, but it's really funny. But it's completely authentic for this character.
It is, and we've seen the way he's been getting picked to death by these phone calls from his sisters over and over again, presumably for years.
Why are you blocking me? Why won't you just... Because she's going to tease him about it.
Yeah.
Or she's going to give him a hard time, like, maybe you don't know what you're doing and you're going to screw this up.
He doesn't want to hear any of it at this point. He's heard enough. And yeah, we saw enough of that in the early part of the film where we understand where he's coming from. Even though if you overheard that conversation, if you were walking on the street, you'd call the police. But in the movie, it feels exactly right for that intense melodramatic moment. It's hilarious. It's necessary as an antidote and to make her just do what he wants. You also don't actually feel like he would really kill his sister.
No, I guess that's important, but it's still not the kind of thing you want to be saying to your sibling.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, and of course there's the whole scene where they just keep saying over and over and over that hilarious story about when we called you gay boy and it made you freak out.
Remember you threw the hammer through the window? What'd you have that hammer for anyway?
Yeah, we were calling you gay boy. Remember gay boy?
God, it's so crazy. And he smashes up the living room.
It really captures something about family dynamics. This idea that...
In an exaggerated way, hopefully.
Hopefully, that you could have this younger brother or younger sibling. It's important not just that he is the one brother among all these sisters. Is he supposed to be the youngest? They treat him like he's the youngest.
Well, they definitely treat him like the youngest.
Yeah. Anyway, their role in the family could just be for you to totally dehumanize them.
And in desperation, he reaches out to one of the sisters' husbands.
Barry, I'm a dentist.
That scene is amazing.
But isn't it supposed to be confidential with the doctor? Oh, God, it's so painful.
I sometimes cry a lot for no reason.
To be honest, this might be the best performance in any Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
I would not dispute that. It's a masterful film in every aspect. From that point, anyway, we've got these two heightened realities competing with each other, as we've been discussing. Is he going to ascend into new universe with Emily Watson, or is he going to be dragged down?
And endless travel points.
All of that's happening through synchronicity, because as you say, he doesn't travel. He notices there's something wrong with this promotion. He is a businessman. He's very invested in this sense of himself as a competent businessman.
And this is really true of Sandler, who believably in the interviews for this movie talks about, I am obsessed with comedy. I spend all of my time thinking about that. That's all I think about. That's all I want to do, is make the best movies and the funniest movies.
All Barry Egan wants to do is get ahead as a businessman selling plungers for the moment.
Unbreakable handle.
Sorry, that's embarrassing. That's one of the old plungers. He's obviously doing well. There are constantly people there visiting the showroom. There are all these pallets of plungers showing up all the time. He's got people working for him like Luis Guzman.
Why has no one remade Unfaithfully Yours with Adam Sandler? Maybe Paul Thomas Anderson should do that.
So all of that's going on, but as we've discussed a little bit already, there is the Philip Seymour Hoffman world, and they too have their plans for him. We get so much more of a sense of the sad inadequacies of the D&D Mattress Man world than you need to.
That horrible, gross haircut.
He's not Mephistophelian in any way, right? Like, masterfully.
No, this is a really stupid scam.
Just about the worst thing I can possibly imagine. A phone sex line started by people who are moralistically judging their callers. Right? They actually feel like these people are subhuman scum. It's not just a pose. They're not just saying that to him.
Well, yeah, that's why they're not realistic. You know, they're like demons of some kind, right?
Exactly.
Because they think that you are a pervert if you call our line, and you deserve whatever we're going to give you. We're just going to extort a bit of money.
You opened up a can of whoop ass on yourself, to borrow from the water boy.
Why are you begrudging us this $700?
Yeah, that's all they want. Presumably, if he had agreed to give the rent money over, the putative rent money over, that would have been that.
And I guess most perverts who call their lines, they just accept their punishment for what they've done.
And they're acting on incorrect information from the start, right? Because Barry tells them, I have a girlfriend and she's out of town, and while she's out of town, I'm calling this big wild sex line. So they think they can blackmail him, and of course they can't. There's nothing they can do to a guy that has no friends and has no girlfriend and works in a weird plunger store.
But then he actually, he does get a chance to redirect his rage.
I just think it's amazing the way Anderson stages that whole build-up and battle between them, because each side feels like they are morally justified. Like, righteous fury is rising on either side of the phone when they keep calling him and saying, you better not hang up, you're letting yourself in for a world of trouble. And he feels like he tells them they're bad people and they better stop calling and interrupting his business day. He's never going to give them any money. I just can't think of any other movie where anything resembling this in any way would ever happen.
Well, Barry has to learn how to set boundaries with everybody, and he luckily is able to turn his attention away from the sisters and toward these people who are encroaching so ferociously on his boundaries that maybe this is where he actually learns.
This is ultimately going to be the making of Barry.
But it's not the worm turns plot that you get in so many comedies where the man finds his traditional masculinity by the end of the movie.
No, not exactly. But if you do want to think about this in theological terms, you would have to say that everyone ultimately is working to assist Barry in becoming a more complete, happy person.
Yes, it's a very Jungian movie.
Even the mattress man has a role, as the devil is just an adversary, right? Set up by God, not really a power base separate from God's order.
He doesn't get his $700 back. He just wants to call it quits and say we're even now.
That's that mattress man.
Because he does get to destroy the brothers' truck and beat them up and terrify them.
Well, he hits them with a tire iron. It's incredibly violent, that scene.
Does he hit them? I think he just hits the truck and beats them up a bit.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to tell. Everything happens so quickly, but Sandler has a kind of ballet of violence.
I was going to say, he has like a balletic grace of controlled ferocity in that scene, and you
don't see that anywhere else in the movie. It's like everything comes into focus for him. A love that is stronger than anything they can ever imagine. That's what he says, right?
And then he hands the crowbar back to the cowering guy, who's
Right.
the one that he hasn't hit. But he doesn't go crazy on their asses and
He neutralizes the threat.
and beat them senseless. Again, though, he's doing everything right in that he gets this rage out and he accesses this higher level of balletic flow of violence, controlled violence, and it's righteous violence, and, this is all provoked by the threat to Lena.
He goes back to the car and realizes she's possibly got a concussion. There's blood coming from top of her head.
As he's doing everything right, he's at the same time doing everything wrong because he's dealing with his own shit instead of dealing with her emotionally, which is what she would have preferred him to do.
Yeah, and he's escalating this war with the mattress man crowd.
Anyway, when he finally magically, it is by magic that he appears in Utah, which actually must be another dimension, still holding the phone.
It's very far away, right? Utah, I would think at least a 10-hour drive. I don't know for sure, but there's a whole state in between California and Utah, which is called Nevada, and it's a big state.
And we see him magically appear holding the phone receiver.
It's just brilliant, the whole sequence. He realizes no matter what, he's got to settle this tonight so that he can truly start something with Lena. It's got to end one way or another. If he has to beat hell from them, he will. If he can just convince them that he means business and they just better call it quits, say that's that, all the better.
They've started this feud that could just go on forever.
Until everyone's dead.
Until everyone's dead. And so instead of which he's going to, in the best Western style or whatever, get Mattress Man to say that's that. We've each extracted our pound of flesh from each other.
That's right.
Mattress Man doesn't fucking get anything, though, done to him.
Threatened pretty seriously. Would you have preferred to see Adam Sandler hit him with a tire iron?
No, I'm just saying, he kind of gets out of this scot-free.
That's true.
But he does have to curb his moral righteousness.
Absolutely.
His own sense of justice.
And he tries to get the last word, and he is immediately squelched. Because Sandler, what did I tell you? Anderson got the exact right people to play every single, even minor role in this movie. And it's just an overwhelmingly brilliant execution of a brilliant plan. But this is the Valentine's episode, so we should talk a little bit as well about the final coming together of Barry and Lena in Hawaii. Those scenes are magical.
Yeah, well, Hawaii seems to be the world of grace.
But of course, it's a very strange kind of grace and passion that they experience for each other. The way that they conceive of to express this overwhelming love is to talk about smashing each other and eating each other's eyeballs, which it is a human tendency, right? Obviously, you hear people talk about how things are so cute, they want to destroy them.
Well, mostly mothers with babies.
Exactly. But this is how they feel about each other. It is that kind of intense bond that is building between them.
Well, she seems to want to devour him like a mother with a baby, but she goes far for that, like sucking on your eyeballs. Like, you don't usually say that to your baby.
No, she is a very strange person, and she has found her match, because Adam Sandler just goes with it. These are the words of love he's been wanting to hear his entire life.
But don't you feel like
He doesn't want the gross talk of Georgia on the phone sex line. He wants this madness from her, and he gets it.
Sure. But don't you think that he also is afraid that this could go too far? But then once they wake up the morning after, there's this equilibrium where he suddenly feels like a normal human being. So maybe he had to face that fear that I could, in this context of love and sex, I could...
We'll just burn up.
I could express myself and it's not going to cross over into real violence,
Yeah, no, they find another way. Love through other means, which are the means that most people are thinking of in the first place.
And she's also got him a lot more figured out after their sexual union too, where she's talking to the sister and she finally understands and realizes that their relationship has to be protected from these sisters.
Yeah, you can't join in their weird game that they play with him.
Reindeer games?
That scene is awesome where she is telling, because she's playing along and pretending that Barry's not in the hotel room with her, and she says that, oh yeah, he's kind of a weirdo, right? And Marilyn Rajskub is like, no, don't say that about him. I can say that, but you can't say that.
Yeah, that feels very loosey, and it's also obviously a common observation about families.
The movie could have ended there in some ways, right? But of course it can't, because there's this lingering element of the mattress man, which we've just discussed. And the final thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, the synthesis comes after he has vanquished the mattress man and returned and owned up to the fact that he did fail her at that point, but there is a good reason for it, which Lena, possibly uniquely in the world, is able to accept, that he had called this phone sex line and got into trouble with these 4 blonde brothers, and he had to destroy them or neutralize them before they could move in together or begin their globe-trotting life together.
It is mythic, though, isn't it? The 4 blonde brothers.
Yeah, the fairy tale aspect is crucial. The music, of course, adds so much to this movie, too, by John Bryan, and it does give it this mystical quality. And yeah, that's where everything comes into place. Why has the pudding been dwelt upon so much in this movie? It's because it is going to enable him to travel the world with her, and he can manage his plunger store by remote control, no doubt, while he has to be away.
Well, those guys seem like you can have confidence in them and leave the place in their charge.
Yeah, Luis Guzman, I'm sure, is an able assistant there, or deputy.
I was being sarcastic.
I think they're fine.
They're constantly breaking the place.
Those plungers sell themselves. It's a movie that unashamedly celebrates codependence to an extreme degree. She will not really be happy, and neither will he, unless they can go everywhere together for the rest of their lives. We cheer as this happens. In real life, if you knew a friend that was getting into a situation like this, you might be concerned. In this movie, it feels exactly right.
I wouldn't be concerned. What do you mean? He's going to have all the travel points he can ever use for the rest of his life, and he's going to use them to go to fun places with his girlfriend? What's wrong with that? This is a movie that Anderson was content to describe, maybe not thrilled, but content to describe as a romantic comedy. It's not a movie that has, unlike The Wedding Singer, it's not a movie that has anything obvious in common with romantic comedies.
Well, except the conviction at the heart of the film that love is the most important thing. Romantic love is the most important thing in the world.
Absolutely. But can you think of any other romantic comedy that faintly resembles this? If it resembles anything, it's not a romantic comedy, but it's something like...
Minnie and Moskowitz, maybe.
Okay, yeah, some of the insane... Well, except that nobody resists each other in this movie.
It's very different, but it's got some of the same...
Well, the characters are very, very wacky. There is a...
threat of violence.
Yeah, threat of violence is huge. But both of them in Minnie and Moskowitz are as introverted as Adam Sandler's character.
I mean, in a way, Moskowitz is playing the Lena role in Minnie and Moskowitz, right? Trying to break her out of her prison of selfhood.
Yeah, but Lena's not actually trying to do anything. She just kind of activates that.
Right.
But I was going to say something like Portrait of Jenny.
Okay, sure.
Where a muse just shows up, right? Just a radiant muse just shows up in your life at its darkest point and transforms you.
Yeah, so it's part of a glorious lineage of my favorite films of all time. So it's no wonder I fell in love with it immediately.
But when we talk about Portrait of Jenny, we've always talked about... Jenny's a much more developed character than Lena is, but we've always talked about how, despite the fact that she's in the muse role, she is the one making the romantic choice. And that is what's kind of the interesting deviation from the surface tropes here in Punch Drunk Love that, as I said, will get more developed in Phantom Thread.
Lena is absolutely the initiator of romance here.
Which is also true, as you pointed out, of The Wedding Singer.
Yeah.
Whereas it's very much not true in a lot of the other comedian comedies, whether it's Groundhog Day, I don't know, there's something about Mary, where the woman is kind of the man's target, and she's not making the choice.
A little nod to that right from the first appearance when she's walking down the lane and he's watching her curves progress.
Yeah, but she's showing off for him.
Yeah.
She's already selected him at that point. She tells him, I saw a picture of you. I showed up there on purpose.
There's the merest nod there to objectification, but as you say, yeah, she's framing it for him. It's really, she's in control from that moment onward.
And then she looks back to see if he's looking, and he immediately, is terrified and, tries to pretend he's not looking at her.
And then goes home and calls a phone sex line.
Yeah, but he's got to pay for it.
All right, well, we hope that we've contributed in some way to your romantic celebrations this year. Next week on the podcast, we'll be dealing with very different fare. It's the final week of our Delphine Seyrig Spotlight series. We'll be talking about Jeanne Dielman and Golden 80s.
That will be an awesome task.
See you next week.